Hi guys and welcome back. In this video I wanted to tell you about slicing. Slicing is the process of getting a part of a list or other iterable. Imagine you've got a list of your friends and you wanted your friends between 2 and 4. You can do print, friends, and then in square brackets 2:4. And what this means is you're going to get Anna and Bob. That's 2, 3, and stops at 4, so it doesn't get you 4. This here is list slicing, and you can do this with strings as well if you want, or with tuples, and what it allows you to do is to get a segment of a list or tuple or a string. It can be really useful at times, but it is particularly useful because you can actually skip some of these numbers. For example, if you want to only get elements in the list except the first one, you can do 1:nothing. And what that means is 1 to the end of the list. So if you do this, you're going to get all your friends except the first one. Similarly, if you put 4 in here, it will start at the very start of the list, end at 4. So we will get Rolf, Charlie, Anna, and Bob, and we will skip the 4th one and any later ones as well. Now, if you remove both numbers, so you just do colon inside square brackets, you'll actually get all the elements back, but with a key difference. You're not getting the same list. It is a new list that you're building. And at this point, that doesn't really matter. It doesn't have a lot of meaning to you, but it just gives you a new list. And this is the way to do that in Python. If you want a new list which contains all of the elements of the previous list, you can do this. If you just do this, you're just getting the same list, so exactly the same thing. Now, with list slicing, you can actually use negative numbers. For example, -3 up to the end of the list. And what this does is it starts counting from the end. So you will get back Anna, which is the element starting from the end, the third one, Bob and Jen. Because again, -3 is the starting point, and when you skip the ending point, that is the end of the list. So you could do -3 to 4, for example, and you get Anna and Bob because it stops at 4. Or you can do -3 empty, and then it'll run to the end of the list. You can do this here. So it will go from the start of the list, because you haven't put anything in there, up to the second to last element, Bob. So you get Rolf, Charlie, and Anna. This is useful if you wanted all your friends except the last 2, for example. Finally, you can also do -3 and, for example, -1. And again, that gives you from the third element from the end, Anna, up to the first element from the end, Jen, but it does not include this one, as always, so you just get Anna and Bob. There's a lot more stuff you can do with slices, but I just wanted to give you a very quick primer. The first number is the starting point, and the second number is the ending point. In this video, we're going to talk about list comprehensions. List comprehensions are a feature of Python that allows us to create new lists very succinctly while also being very powerful. Let's say you've got a list of numbers and you want to create a new list which contains those numbers multiplied by 2. So you'd start with something like numbers equal, and the numbers from 0 to 4, say. And then you want doubled numbers to contain those numbers, but every number multiplied by 2. What you'd have to do without a list comprehension is you would have to use a for loop to go over each number in the numbers list. And then you would have to say doubled numbers dot append to add a new number to the doubled numbers list, and you can append number times 2. And then at the end you can print doubled numbers. So this would do what you want. If you run this, you'll see that the output is 02468. Instead of doing this, you can use a list comprehension, which actually has similar syntax in many places, but it's much shorter, and once you're accustomed to it, it's also a little bit easier to read. How you do that is you would say doubled numbers equals, and then you start off with some brackets. you put here the value that you want to use in the new list, which would be number times 2. And then you put in something like what you see in a for loop. So this is a shorter way of doing exactly this piece of code here. You say, I want to put in my new list number times 2, where the number is each number in the numbers list. And the syntax for that is, again, inside square brackets, the value you want to create into the new list for the variable that you want to use in the list that you want to iterate over to create this new list. So again, it does exactly the same as this. You create your new list, iterate over the numbers list, and add the new number into the new list. So you can just delete this, and of course move the print statement underneath so that it exists when you print it, and the output is exactly the same. Now remember that instead of creating your own list of numbers, you can use range, so you can say in range 5. Now this is exactly the same. You're still creating your new number variable that only exists within this new list, and you are iterating from 0 to 5. And every iteration you're putting into the new list number times 2. Notice that here you can put whatever you want. So it doesn't have to be number times 2. It could just be 5 if you want. And then what you would get out would be 5, 5, 5, 5, because you are repeating 5 times, and the value you're putting each time is 5. If you want, you can go back to number times 2. But again, just wanted to tell you that anything goes in here. You don't have to use this variable. You can put whatever you want. And like I mentioned earlier on in the course, if you're not using the variable, you normally use the underscore for it to signal that you don't care about the variable in here. Let's say you've got a list with your friends' ages and you want to create a new list which contains a string describing your friend's age for each of your friends. So you could create something like age strings, and in here put an F string. My friend is age years old. Now you want to create this string for each element in this list. So you would say for age in friend ages. Let me just make this a bit bigger for you so you can see it in one line. So this is exactly the same structure as we had before. You've got your brackets that signal that you are creating a new list. And then because of what's inside it, you know it's a list comprehension. You've got this for loop there. And what you're putting into your new list is this string. My friend is age years old. And then you are creating the age variable that you're going to use for each of the values in your friend ages list. So you'd end up with one string for each age, where the age variable will be replaced into there. So you can print age strings. So you can see the output here is a list with 4 elements, 4 strings, 1 for each age. Now let's say you've got the names of some of your friends, like Rolf, Bob, and Jen. And what you want is to apply a transformation to each element so that you'll only get back lowercase letters. So Rolf will be turned to lowercase r, O, L, F, Bob will get a lowercase b, and Jen will get a lowercase j. What you can do is you can create a new list, which will be a list comprehension, and what you'll do here is name.lower, which actually can be used on any string to turn it into a lowercase string for name in names. And again, you create the name variable, which will be each of the strings inside the names list, and you're putting into your new list name.lower every iteration, which will give you lowercase Rolf, lowercase Bob, lowercase Jen. So if we print this out, you'll see the output there. This is particularly useful for when you want to work with user input. For example, let's say you've got a list of friend names and you want the user to give you their name so you can see if they are in the list. It's possible that the user will type lowercase or uppercase letters which don't exactly match these strings. So it can be useful to turn everything to lowercase when you're doing comparisons between your strings and user input. For example, something like this. You've got a friend variable, which is some user input. We ask them to enter their friend name. And then you've got a friends list, which contains a bunch of friends. If you want to see whether the user's input is in this list, you can do something like if friend in friends, print friend is one of your friends. So we can run this. And if we enter Rolf, say, then we'll get Rolf is one of your friends. But very often users will enter Rolf or maybe lowercase Rolf. Maybe they can't be bothered entering the capital R, or maybe their name is all in lowercase, as in some countries. That is what happens. So if we enter Rolf with a lowercase r, you'll see that nothing gets printed out, even though it probably should. So what to do is create a new list where each of the names is lowercase. So friends lower can be name.lower for name in friends. And then what we're going to do is compare friend against friends lower. But if we do this and run it as is, when we type Rolf with a capital R, it will no longer show as correct, because now we are comparing capital R Rolf with lowercase Rolf, which is in this list. So we also have to turn friend into lowercase in order to have a fair comparison. So we'll do if friend.lower in friends lower, then we will print out. This has a benefit, which is that now I can type Rolf with a capital R, and it says that it's one of my friends. But I can also type Rolf with a lowercase r, and that's also fine. Finally, I can type Rolf with any sort of upper or lowercase letters, and it will be correct. By the way, if you wanted to print this out with the usual capitalization, which is the R uppercase and the rest of the letters lowercase, then that's called title casing. And you can do that on the friend here by doing title. So here I've typed Rolf with all uppercase letters, but because we're printing friend.title, what that does is it turns it into the traditional title casing, which is that every word in the string will have the first letter as uppercase and the other letters as lowercase. So this can just be a small improvement, and of course you can put this into a separate variable if you prefer, just like that. So either goes, it's up to you. So that's it for this video. We have learned about list comprehensions, which, to recap, have a structure of the new value that you want to put into your list for the variable that you want to use for each iteration in the iterable that you want to go over. And this doesn't have to be a list, by the way. It could be a tuple or a set or anything else. In the next videos, we're going to learn a bit more about list comprehensions, including how to add conditionals to them to make them a bit more flexible.